Let's talk women in Formula One. To be quite truthful, the bigger conversation is women in motorsport, but this video will be focused on Formula One along with a mention of other motorsports. So with that being said, let's get into the history. As we know, F1 has been around since 1950, and in its 70 plus years, there has only ever been 5 women racing drivers to have entered in at least one Grand Prix weekend. Which, to be quite truthful, is not a shock to me, but it is quite interesting as F1 is a sport where all genders should realistically be able to participate together. I mean, if you look at other sports such as basketball and football, there is a vast difference in the support, sponsorships, and viewerships that the women get versus their male counterparts, and that never really made any sense to me because it is quite literally the same exact sport, just different genders playing it. And it makes me ask, if you, as a fan, love basketball and football and are super passionate about it, why wouldn't you want to watch more of it? Why wouldn't you want to witness the best of the best participate at the highest levels of that sport? And the same goes with F1. The 5 female racing drivers to have entered the sport are Maria Teresa De Filippis, Leila Lombardi, Davina Garcia, Desiree Wilson, and Giovanna Amati. Maria Teresa De Filippis was the first ever woman to race in F1, debuting on May 18, 1958, and overall she participated in 5 Grand Prix weekends. Her best race result was in the 1958 Belgian Grand Prix, where she came in 10th position, and unfortunately, in the following race for the French Grand Prix, she was prevented from competing. Maria later said in a 2006 interview that the race director at that time denied her from entering the French Grand Prix, and he said that, and I quote, "The only helmet a woman should use is the hairdresser." Which is a highly misogynistic statement to make and very much part of the boys' club mentality of that era. On the 10th of May 1959, Maria had her final attempt at a Grand Prix qualification at the Monaco GP, where she unfortunately failed to qualify, and in August of 1959, Maria did end up retiring from the sport following the passing of Porsche team leader Jean Behra in a racing incident. After Maria's retirement, it would take 15 years for another woman to qualify for a Grand Prix in Formula One, and that was Leila Lombardi. While her first entrance was the 1974 British Grand Prix, she did fail to qualify for that, but in 1975, Leila made history by being the first woman in F1 to score championship points, and she still holds that title today. She has also completed in the most Grand Prix for a woman in Formula One, and that is 17 entries and 12 starts. Leila is quite literally a legend of the sport. In 1976, at the British Grand Prix, we see the only time where there was more than one female racer to enter a Grand Prix weekend, and those 2 women are Leila Lombardi and Davina Garcia. While neither of them were able to qualify, the fact that there was even the opportunity for 2 women to enter an F1 Grand Prix weekend is pretty much unheard of. Actually, it hasn't happened since, so it is just unheard of. In 1980, Desiree Wilson became the first woman to win a Formula One race, where she won at Brands Hatch. To further clarify, this was the British Formula One Championship, not the British Grand Prix. Yes, they are 2 different things, but the British Formula One Championship was under the Formula One umbrella, so you know what? We're just going to claim it. Finally, the last woman to attempt a Formula One qualification is Giovanna Amati in 1992, and since then, it has now been 31 years and counting since a woman has entered a Grand Prix weekend in attempt to qualify. All 5 of these women are successful racing drivers outside of F1. While Formula One may be the pinnacle of motorsport, it does not define the successful racing careers that these 5 ladies have had. They've gone on to win other championships and have continued their trailblazing success for women in motorsport. And now we jump into women in modern-day Formula One. In 2014, Susie Wolff, 2 years after signing with Williams, became the first woman in 22 years to participate in a Formula One race weekend, where she was able to join in on FP1 at Silverstone during the British Grand Prix. This was now 8 years ago, so clearly there is still a lot more work that needs to be done. There are so many talented female drivers that deserve a spot on the grid, but not only is there a lack of opportunity and sponsorships, but there is also only a limited number of teams and seats available. For every one team looking for a new driver, there's X amount of male drivers also looking to take that seat. So how do we fix this? Well, it definitely starts at the top. And I want to say that with the W Series and F1 Academy, there seems to be a more concentrated effort in ensuring that women have the opportunity to drive in Formula One, but I also think that there is more to it than that. In order to have equality in something, it needs to be included in all parts and not just selective areas. Women are interested in motorsports and are interested in Formula One, and not just the driving, but in other aspects as well, such as being a presenter, pundits, team principals, in the pit crew, engineers, analysts, in the governing bodies. The terminology in which we refer to the drivers in the rules and regulations needs to change. The sport as a whole needs to be more diverse. We need more women and women of color involved because they are interested. When you see people that look like you participate in something that you are passionate about, it gives hope, which is why the W Series and F1 Academy are so important. Even though W Series is now in administration, the impact that it made, I personally believe, cannot be dismissed. W Series was created because the pipeline of female drivers to the highest levels of motorsport is pretty much non-existent, so the idea of starting the series was raised. While I am not a racing driver, I am a fan of motorsports and I am an advocate for diversity in motorsport, so it is very important for me as a fan to see more people of color involved in motorsport and more women in all genders be given the opportunity to race cars. I say this to say because, and correct me if I'm wrong, but when the idea of W Series was raised, there was some criticism that came from it because some people did not agree with the philosophy behind it. While I can understand where the criticism is coming from, I do think that it was slightly unjust, and I'll tell you why. A huge talking point was that with the introduction of the W Series, it was segregating rather than including or promoting women in already established series, which is an understandable criticism to make because, like I said at the start of this video, when it comes to motorsport, why not compete against the best of the best regardless of their gender? Because it shouldn't matter. But to also counter that, if there is no room for women in the already established series, why not have something like the W Series shine a light on these talented female drivers? It allows them to do what they love while also giving them an opportunity to showcase their talents and in return, giving them even more opportunities in motorsport within the top series and with the top teams. And as a viewer, I would rather see that than not see any female racing drivers at all. Please feel free in the comments to let me know your thoughts about this. So during the 3-year arc of W Series, because the 2020 season was cancelled due to COVID, there were 18 permanent drivers per season and between 1 to 5 reserve drivers as well. Jamie Chadwick won the first ever W Series season in 2019, and she continued to defend and subsequently retain her title in both the 2021 and 2022 seasons. It is unfortunate that the W Series was unable to gain the funding to continue on because I do think that it could have been a strong, established series in its own right, but also ultimately along with the introduction of F1 Academy, it would have been a great starting point to the ladder of Formula One and overall just Formula racing. F1 Academy was introduced in November 2022, and with this introduction, it was said that the aim of the series is to maximize the opportunity and potential of young female drivers to reach the highest level in motorsport and to provide young talent currently in go-karting or other junior categories with access to the fundamental level of experience needed before going racing in F3 and joining the pyramid to Formula One. I think this is great because there is a gap between the experience that young female drivers have opposed to their male counterparts, and if F1 Academy can help bridge that gap and in return make it more possible for there to be a female driver in Formula One within the next few years, then this is exactly what is needed. It was announced on March 1st, 2023 that Susie Wolff would be the managing director of F1 Academy, and as we know, she is such a huge advocate for women in motorsports and a powerhouse in her own right, But along with her experience within motorsports, it seems to be that we are going in the right direction to hopefully seeing female racing drivers in Formula One. Additionally, Formula One and F1 Academy have announced that for the 2024 season, all 10 F1 teams will have one driver and their livery on one car competing in the series. And this is a huge deal. Susie Wolff herself said that this landmark moment not only demonstrates the depth of support for F1 Academy from across the F1 community, but will inspire a whole generation of young girls to realize the opportunities both on and off the track in motorsport. And I have to say that, at least from my experience, people start off watching Formula One because they love motorsport and they want to support some of their favorite teams, and with that comes support of their favorite driver as well. So, by ensuring that each F1 team will have one driver and their livery competing in the series next year, it entices viewers who support those teams to want to watch them in all other areas of motorsport. It shines a light on these drivers, which is the ultimate goal, and brings them one step closer not just to drive in Formula One, but to get the funding and sponsorships that they need to feel secure in their careers and focus on what it is that they love to do, which is racing. So, while we haven't had a female driver enter a Grand Prix weekend in 31 years, as a fan, I am hopeful that with this wave that we are on and with this effort that is going in to ensure that women have a place in Formula One, we will get there. It's great that young drivers will have something like F1 Academy that will ensure that from karting, they will get the same level of expertise and experience that their male counterparts get, and it will hopefully be an equal playing ground, meaning that the opportunity for women to race in Formula One is not so far away any longer. We are in such a beautiful era when it comes to women in motorsports right now. The momentum only seems to be growing stronger by year, and with growing momentum means we also need to be loud in our support, which is why I felt that this video was needed and why I feel that it is important for me to highlight some of the organizations and people within the world of Formula One and motorsport that I like to keep up with. With that being said, the first is the official Women in Motorsport Commission, which was launched by the FIA in 2009. They launched this with the task to create a sports culture that facilitates and values the participation of women in all aspects of motorsport. And under this branch, I have to shout out WIM Canada, aka Women in Motorsport Canada, a branch/member with the FIA. Their mission statement is that they have a driving goal to increase equality and participation in all areas of motorsport for girls and women in Canada across the globe. They are investing in fostering new female talent in motorsport and supporting the careers and futures of the women paving the path forward in all areas of the motorsport industry. As a fellow Canadian, I had to shout them out. Next is More Than Equal. More Than Equal is an independent, not-for-profit initiative, and its aim is to find and develop Formula One's first female world champion. This initiative was actually founded by David Coulthard, who is a 13-time Grand Prix race winner, alongside of his business partner, entrepreneur Karel Komarek. And if you have a chance to check out the More Than Equal website, I would highly suggest reading their global research report, as it is very informative. Finally, there is one blog/website that I love to use, and I follow all of their social media accounts as well, and that is Females in Motorsport. They have been such a wonderful and positive platform in promoting and supporting women in motorsport. Like I said, they are truly one of my favorite blogs, and they also have a podcast too. So if you want to support women in motorsport or just hear more about them, I would definitely suggest taking a listen to their podcast or just checking out their website and or their blog. And when it comes to supporting female racing drivers, there are many series that you can follow, but these are just a few that I like to keep up with. The first is the World Endurance Championship. I actually watched 24 Hours of Le Mans this year, and I'm so proud of myself. Next is Extreme E, which is so super cool. It is an off-road racing series in the most remote corners of the planet that are impacted by climate change. Essentially, they have 10 teams consisting of one male and one female driver, and they are essentially racing to highlight global issues and inspire the next generation. And of course, there is F1 Academy. You can keep up with F1 Academy on their website, where you can catch up on the latest news, race results, teams, and drivers, and there's also a list of where you can watch the races in your respective country. I also just want to highlight some of the other women in other areas of Formula One and motorsport, aside from being racing drivers, that I like to keep up with. The first is Laura Winter. You may know her from F1 TV. She is a sports broadcaster, and in terms of motorsport specifically, she specializes in Formula One and Extreme E. Then there's Naomi Schiff, who is a racing driver and presenter. Naomi actually drove in the W Series, and she also presented Sky Sports F1. Next is Ariana Bravo. She is a reporter on Channel 4's F1 TV coverage and also co-host of the Driven by Diversity podcast. And then there's Katie Fairman. You may know her from her WTF1 days, but she's a motorsport journalist, and she also has her own blog and podcast that are just as amazing as she is. And of course, there's Lissy McIntosh, who is a content creator and Formula One presenter. If you have TikTok and your algorithm is mostly Formula One, then you're most likely going to come across at least one of her videos, and if you haven't yet, you probably will soon. Again, this is just a list of some of the people that I keep up with. There are so many women involved in motorsport, and this video is truly a love letter to them. I want to see all of them succeed in their careers. So with that being said, I want to send a shout out to all the female racing drivers of the past, present, and the future. To all the women who have dealt with misogynistic remarks for no other reason but because they decided to follow their dreams, you are all appreciated. I want to commend every woman who is involved in motorsport. May they be an engineer, presenter, steward, racing driver, analyst, the list goes on. You are appreciated. You are all trailblazers of this industry, and because of you, future generations will get an opportunity to be a part of this beautiful world of motorsports. And to everyone listening today, thank you so much for taking the time to listen and to watch, and I'll see you in the next one.